Hey guys, Nicholas at Motorcycle Dress Up. Today we are looking at the ForceWinder intake. It's a great intake. I've been running this particular intake on my bike for years. Been very happy with it. It's kind of your forced ram intake with the typical elbow sweep here. The reason for the video today, even though everyone kind of knows about this intake already, is that they have redesigned the entire thing. So the main reason was that the intake adapter, this portion back here, was discontinued by Kiriakin, who used to make it, and a lot of the companies that you knew who you were getting your intakes from for the Bolt were actually using that adapter. Because it's discontinued now, they decided to make their own version of this. The new version, they actually had sent us a 3D print of it, and we tested it here in the shop, made sure that the fitment's perfect for the Bolt, and everything worked out really great. And they just got back all of their stuff from powder coating a few weeks ago. We got our first 4 in the shop here, sent out 2 of them already. We've got 2 more left before we restock, it's a great intake. What we're going to do today is I'm going to show you the differences between the old version and the new version. We're going to kind of walk through those, and then we are going to do an install of the new version so you know what to expect if you get it, and you know how to install it when you get it. So let's go. So here is the box that it came in. This is probably a similar box that you will get. It will come with a few loose parts. Of course, you will have your air filter there. You will have a clamp for the air filter. You will have a gasket for the intake arm, a rain cover, dust cover to go on it. You will have all your bolts and hardware that are necessary. And then they are now using a small filter in lieu of doing the air bypass. Like, yeah, you don't have to feed it back to where the oil would come from and basically feed into your filter. So that is now bypassed with a new little filter. And then this is their new arm. The arm is a different shape. It's actually got better airflow than the original, so you'll be very excited to see that. And then, of course, the adapter, which this is a very heavy piece. It feels very good, very solid, looks excellent when fitted to the bike. So let's get started here. And I've got all our parts laid out. You can see their new intake actually comes with a black end, which a lot of people were kind of really desiring from this intake because they originally came with a silver end on them. So that's a really nice looking change. The elbow has now changed a little bit so that it's more squared off around the sides. When this is mounted, you'll actually have better airflow and a wider opening to go to those dual intake manifold that has like 2 butterflies on it. You'll see it when we pull it apart, but basically the inside has those 2 holes there, so that lines up much better on this adapter than the old one did. This is a super solid piece of steel here, really well done. And you look here, everything is just perfectly designed and lined up to fit right on this manifold. So you also have a few bolts and the gasket, of course, which is going to go here between this arm and that guy. So, and then you've got one little elbow. The elbow is going to be used to attach this little filter here. And that's pretty much the whole kit, aside from the little rain sock cover that we got as well. And we'll go ahead and get started. We're going to start by going ahead and starting to dismantle this one. So I've gone ahead and removed all the bolts from this. You also see that that is where the original intake air return was. That would allow oil to actually end up in the air filter and dump it back into the intake there. But now that that is gone, you are no longer going to have to run that back to the air intake return. So that's the way that's set up. So this is the old one. You can see what the old design looked like. Pretty standard. It's fine. If you notice, like, kind of the round hole on the old one doesn't really line up perfectly with the shape of this manifold here. And so that's something that's been changed on the new version. You're going to have a lot better airflow as a result, because now we've got an opening right here that's going to line up perfect with this. So that arm is perfectly shaped for this new intake manifold. So this is what we're going to put on. It may or may not have these bolts already in them when you get it, but we'll go ahead and just start screwing this guy in. If you notice, there's 1, 2, 3 bolts there. Those are going to line up with the 1, 2, 3 bolts that are there. The old version had an adapter bracket that was down here, and it tied into the tensioners there. We're going to remove that bracket as well, because this came with the original kit. So we'll take that guy off, and then when we go to screw this on, those 3 bolts will line up perfectly with those 3 holes, 1, 2, and 3 right there. So that's how it'll go on. It's a little more concealed with the bolt holes, so it'll look a lot nicer. All right, so here we've got everything off. We got our intake. We removed the faceplate that was on it, and we've got our 3 bolts. These are 5mm bolts. The 5mm bolts are going to need a 4mm Allen key to screw them in. So you get those guys in there, just pop them in a little bit. We get out our 4mm Allen key, and we can loosely screw those in. The torque specs are not super high for this, so be careful you don't over tighten. If you do over tighten, you could strip out the threads on them, so do be careful with that. But aside from that, it is a very straightforward installation. So there, and we're basically going to go right around probably somewhere like 17 foot-pounds, I think, would be about as tight as you could go with these without stripping anything out. There we go. If you want to add a little Loctite to it, that might be a good thing to do. And that's it. That's installed. The next thing we'll do is we're going to add our plate. So we've got our plate with the 6 screws that came on it. That guy pops on like this, just the way it was to begin with. And we'll go ahead and screw those in loosely and tighten them up. This is possible that these holes may have some powder coat in them. If they do have some powder coat in them, it could be a little difficult to get through, so just do consider that. But if you just go slow, they will ultimately start feeding through. So that's something to just take note of when you are doing this install. Again, these are more 4mm screws, so I suggest just loosely tightening each one. You don't want to torque them all down to begin with. And then as you loosely tighten each one, you'll be able to get them all nice and tight at the end. Tighten everything up at the very end there. So pretty simple. We'll just keep going here. All right, so we're gonna put our arm on now. If you can see, just be sure you got your gasket lined up properly. Fairly simple to figure out. We'll go ahead and put that on there. These are screwed in with a 3/16 Allen key. So you might be able to get away with a 4.5 inch Allen key as well. Or I'm sorry, 4.5mm Allen key. That is the closest equivalent in metric if you don't have the 3/16. But yeah, this is a 3/16 that they're using on here. So We're gonna use a long Allen key so that we don't scratch anything up. Being sure not to cross thread anything. I'm actually gonna back out because I feel like I'm not going in straight. There we go. And then we'll just keep going around there. Try to get each one lined up pretty good. And again, it's always best to not tighten anything up while you're putting it together. Just go ahead and get everything loosely fitted. And then once everything is nice and aligned and the threads are started moving into the locked down position, you can come back and tighten everything up at the end. That's pretty much true of almost anything you install on your bike. If you try to tighten everything up right away, you'll run into issues later on down the line, usually, or many times I should say. So, good rule of thumb, just leave everything kind of loose at the beginning. So we've got this guy screwed down mostly, and we're just going to tighten down each of these 4 corners. I'm going to go in a crisscross pattern to make sure that that gasket gets good even pressure on them. And then as I get through all 4 of them, I'll go back around again and make sure the pressure is about all the same. So you could use a torque wrench on this. There are no torque specs written for it, but you know, you could look up common torque specs for any particular bolt, and that's probably what it would be. So these are 3/16 Allen keys. I don't know exactly what the threads are on them, but should be easy enough to look up. And there you go. We have the arm on. After the arm, the next thing, of course, would be putting on your filter. The filter is very straightforward, very easy. You literally just throw this guy on there. I'm going to throw it in this shape so that I can access the front of the bolt there, and then pop that guy on there, and then we'll tighten it up down here at the bottom. So we've got our intake installed here, and you'll see below we've got the return on the airline. This return, you know, it does get oil coming through it, so it's not something we actually want to feed back into the air intake for various reasons. But what we're going to do is, the recommended way of installing this is to push this back through onto the other side. Once we have it back through the other side, then we can reroute this line. So we'll pull it through here, and we'll pull it up and back out over here. There is a large piece of hose on the outside of this that I've already pulled off. You're gonna pull that section of hose off if you want, and then once you pull that off, you can actually feed it through where it's fed through the frame right here. So you get all that hose, get it out of that clip, and then you've got quite a good amount of hose to work with here. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna take this guy, and there is a little clamp back here. You can loosen that clamp and re-angle this line so that you get a nice flow from here down the back of the crankcase. So the goal ultimately is to just feed it across and down. And there's actually already a line doing this that you may have never noticed. This line is for a gasoline overflow. So we're just basically doing what is already done on the OEM setup for the gasoline overflow for this oil overflow. So this is going to go right down there below the bottom of the tank, or below the bottom of the bike. You'll want to just clean up the routing on that guy a little bit and get it nice and I've actually got kind of wrapped around a cable there, but you get the idea. So once you get that fed down here, you're going to have some hose hanging down at the bottom, and you're just going to chop this hose, say right around here, And once you chop this hose, you can add your filter, and it can just basically hang here where you've already got your hose for the gasoline overflow, and it's just going to empty right down there below the bike. So I zip tied it to a point on the frame here, and I just have it with the elbow, and I literally just fed up that tube right through there. You can kind of see it right there. I fed it up and over and then back to where it came from right. All right, now that we've got everything tightened up, we'll go ahead and kind of start this bike and see what it sounds like with that new intake. You can really hear the air flowing